Hey, what's up everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com, and in this video, I'm going to share with you some music production tips and techniques while recreating the beat from Post Malone's Circles. So, let's dive right in. Let's take a listen to the finished product. So let's focus our attention on the guitar strumming pattern that we hear. So obviously, if you have a guitar player or if you play guitar yourself, you can go ahead and recreate that pattern. But if you sound like a dying giraffe while playing the guitar and you're just not good at it, well, there's a third-party plugin that would be really helpful for you, and that's a Contact. And there's a library, a sample library for Contact called Strum Acoustic and Strum Acoustic 2. So we're going to be using Strummed Acoustic and a little bit of manipulating to kind of get close to the sound that we hear in the reference. I'm going to be using the Brit Pop pattern. And what's really cool about this is that you can actually find the specific type of patterns that you're looking for. You can even insert or record the pattern that you would like. You can hit the record and search within the patterns that come with this library for the one that comes closest to that pattern that you've actually recorded. It doesn't change the pattern that's there. It just narrows down the search for the pattern that you're looking for specifically. So the Britpop C pattern was the one closest to the one that I'm hearing in the reference. So let's go ahead and take a listen to the chords. So a couple cool things to keep in mind when using this particular library is there's some little nuances that you can add that can really bring some life to the strumming that you're implementing in your projects. For instance, you can use your pitch modulation wheel to accent certain notes and then keep other ones dull. So I'll use my pitch bend here to do exactly that. We'll start off with accenting that first strum. So you can modulate and pitch, use the pitch bend wheel to accent certain notes within the strumming pattern, and that could be really useful. And those are the small little details that you capture when you're actually recording someone who's performing that, and really helps bring a lot of life to this. Although this sounds great, but you do have to add those little details to kind of get the overall vibe and feel across. Also here on the playback, I'm changing the performance from quantizing to the exact snapping to it, so that's really stiff, to original. I want the performance to be really loose there, adding a little bit of swing to this, and really important, I'm starting the pattern, the strumming pattern on key, meaning when I press the keys on my keyboard. So if I go ahead and play my MIDI keyboard, the pattern will start there as opposed to waiting for the host. And sometimes what tends to happen is when you sync to host, the pattern will start a little late or it won't be right on. So, but starting on key might not be what you want all the time. So just go ahead and mess around with it if you're using this library. Using the start on key for the pattern. And then I have it stopping at every eighth note so that that the rhythm of the pattern can start again. And that's, you can see that, and it's very evident here. When I cut the first chord, and then I cut it and then play it again, so I can really get that strumming pattern as close as possible to the original. So now we've got the pattern there. Let's go ahead and shape the tone of this guitar strumming. So I'm going to do a little bit of EQing. I'm going to go to audio effects here, and let's just do a little bit EQ, and we'll take away some of the low end. And just bring up this frequency here just a little bit. Now I also want to just control, get a little bit more consistency dynamic wise. So we'll use a compressor to do that. Not just throwing a compressor for the sake of it, but I want to be able to control those accented notes. So ding, 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 ding. Just control it just a little bit. So if that's why I'm using this compressor, I'm not going to do a lot of compression. So let's bring the threshold down. Let's bring the ratio up. Just think of this as the strength of the compressor, right? And I don't want to eliminate the punch of it, but I also don't want to. That would be a fast attack. We would get rid of that. completely, just a little bit medium, and then we'll also just keep a little bit of the body of that as well. And that's just to control just really mildly some of those peaks that we're seeing there. And I'll give a little bit of makeup gain, about 2 or 3 there. Now, when I'm listening to the guitar, it definitely has this chorusy underwater vibe, but it's also filtered out and a lot warmer. So let's use our auto filter plugin here, and we're just going to filter out some of the high ends. It's a nice way of kind of just putting a blanket over the sound. And then let's use a chorus plugin, just to use the chorus here right after that. And it's really drenched there. So we'll start with, we'll start halfway and maybe, or just stun it and then dial our way back. Cool. I really like where we're at here. Now let's go ahead and duplicate the pattern. We're going to take the same chords that we've done here, and we're going to just add a nice little pad mirroring the same chord progression here. And for that, I'm going to use instruments. We're going to head over to the wavetable. You could do this with any one oscillator synth that you might be using your DAW. We're going to leave it on a sine wave here. And I'm just going to hold Option, click, and drag that over to this wavetable. Let's just solo that and lower the volume. But we don't need that second repeated pattern here. So let's get rid of that. And just extend. As a matter of fact, you can select everybody, hit the legato button, and that's going to transition smoothly from one note to the next. And that's what legato is. So let's go ahead now, play this. And let's add some unison, some detuning globally here. And just bring back some of the cutoff frequency. Extend the release of this so that when the note stops, the tone continues to play. And we can go ahead and just put a little bit of reverb on this. Now let's go ahead and couple this together with the guitar. So start to recreate the drums, but before we do, I want to give you a heads up that I've put together a sample pack filled with construction kits, loops, one-shots, transition effects, and they're yours absolutely free. It's my gift to you for watching this video. Just click the link below in the description box to download the sample pack, royalty-free, so you can use it in your projects as soon as you get it. So back to recreating the drums. For this, I want to have an acoustic indie type of feel. So I'm going to use a third-party plugin, Addictive Drums 2. And there's an actual drum set kit called Indie Drums that I really like using. So we're going to use the Indie kit here. I'm going to select that. And let's just double click in the session view in the slot there to create a 1-bar loop. And I'm going to input, there you go, the kick. And let's just zoom in here. And let's recreate the pattern. So let's move the velocity up. And let's go ahead and place our snare here. And then recreate that. So let's go ahead and hit play. And then let's go ahead and add our hi-hat pattern. There you go. And this is going to be set to every 8th note. But what we're going to have to do is mess a little bit with the velocity, because that's going to add, once again, those nuances that really help bring some natural life and organic vibe to third-party instruments such as drum kits or acoustic instruments like that. So I'm going to take this first hi-hat here, and we're going to raise the velocity of that down here up a little bit. And we're going to take the second hi-hat and just raise it up a little bit, but we want the first one to be accented and then the second hi-hat to be a little bit less in velocity. So we get this accented hi-hat and then a little softer in response. So we're going to copy that over, and that's going to liven up the hi-hats a little bit more. Same thing too, you can actually add a little bit of nuance by changing the velocity value of one snare from the other. So Bring that there, and then bring this one down a little bit. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing with the kick. There you go. And so what I'll do is get this whole clip and duplicate it and kind of repeat the same process. Choose another snare, lower the velocity, and maybe raise the velocity here. That's just another way to just add a little bit of life to that. And let's add, let's go through here and go through some of the settings here, because I want it really dry. When I listen to the drums and that, it's very dry. There's not a lot of room, not a lot of overhead. So let's go through some of the presets that they might have here. That's a lot better. We could just bring the room down. Kick is really dominant, right in your face. So I'll lower the velocity just a little bit. And let's go and use a drum bus, because it's got a couple multiple plugins all in one from Ableton Live. So we're gonna go over here, drum bus, and what we're gonna do is dampen it a little bit, warm up the drums by taking away some of the high end. And we've got some drive and crunch, and then we'll just bring up some of the transients. And then we're gonna compress this, so I'm gonna lower the trim. Cool. And we're gonna grime it up just a little bit more by using some overdrive. You can always just make it even warmer by lowering the tone, which is essentially just getting rid of a lot of the brightness. And crank up the drive just a little bit more. Let's see what that feels like with everything else. All right, so let's go ahead and recreate the bass. For this, I'm going to use IK Multimedia's Moto Bass. It's just one of my favorite bass plugins because there's just so much that you can do to tweak and get it to sound the way you want it to. So let's start off with using a 70s P bass. Let's go ahead and solo that. So I'm going to do a couple things here. Just add a little bit of muting. Go to the strings, broken in. Let's put old strings on there. Maybe move around where the finger's being played at. Right there. And let's just change the amp. Let's try using a tube amp instead. The tube brought a lot more of the mids out. So I do want to capture a lot of that top end of the bass. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of compression just to kind of control some of the peaks there. And so and let's use an EQ after that. I'm not going to do a high cut, not cutting so much of that, but just, and scoop away. Let's just, and I want to get a little bit more of that nice little, the tapping of the finger there. So cool. Let's see what that sounds like. Now I want that high-end tapping to come out a little bit more. So I'm going to just Command D to duplicate this whole channel with the plugin and the compressor and EQ that we've already added. And we're just going to use an overdrive directly on that. And we're going to change some of the EQing here. Let's eliminate some of the low end. Let's play that here. And that's just going to accent some more of that as well. So I'll just compress a little. And let's hear it together. All right, now let's go ahead and focus on that call and response part that we hear in the reference. And when listening to it, it does sound like a guitar lead part is being played, or it's a guitar playing that part. So we're going to try to recreate that with some sound design using some of the instruments in Ableton Live. Now let's go ahead and use a wavetable, and you could use any 2 oscillator synth that you might have in your DAW to follow along. And let's just go ahead and set it to a sine wave as the waveform that we're going to be using. And here's the riff. And so this is really just shaping it a little bit. We're going to put that down like that. A little bit of unison. And just opening up the release and shortening up the decay and sustain a little bit. Let's check that out and see what we get. Maybe just a little less on that unison. And we have that there. And then what we'll do is duplicate this whole thing. And this is going to be a whole octave higher. But the second one, the octave higher one, which is what I'm focusing on now, we'll make it brighter, a little bit brighter here, maybe a sawtooth, and then mess around with the frequency here. And then open up the amount here, and we're just going to directly put a reverb right on top of this high one here. So let's just focus on the high one for a second. Let me just start playing this from here. And I just want to add a little bit of modulation, just a little bit of movement to this. So we'll go to LFO1 and we'll put click this detune so that in the matrix we can assign oscillator 1 pitch to LFO1. And just the amount has to be lowered. There, that adds a little bit of modulation, some movement there and some life to that. Let's listen to everything all together. Well, I hope this video has been helpful and inspiring in some way, and as my gift to you for watching, I'd love to send you the sample pack I mentioned earlier, filled with loops, riffs, construction kits, one-shots, and transition effects. They're 100% royalty-free, so that means you can use the loops, use the riffs in your music, and share it with the rest of the world. It's yours absolutely free. Just click the link in the description box to download, or you can visit www.beatacademy.com/pack. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, do all that crazy bell ringing stuff you have to do to make sure that you're staying up to date with upcoming videos. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.